Hello everyone, this is AJ and welcome back to the channel and welcome to my review for Season 3 Episode 2 of the Orville, or the Orville New Horizons if you so wish. So let's delve in to this episode. Okay, now before I begin, full disclosure, this is going to be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the episode, please step away, go and watch the episode first. Unless you don't mind being spoilt, then proceed with me and find out about this episode. So this episode here, episode 2, like I said, is titled Shadow Realms. It's directed by John Cassar and written by Brannon Braga, whose name is synonymous with Trek, and Andre Bormanis. So how do they fare right in this episode? So I will step back a bit into the first episode of this season. Last week's episode, although being good, it didn't feel like a season opener. It didn't feel, it was very heavy-handed in the messages it had to give, the idea of suicide and this sort of thing. So I was a bit reluctant going into this episode, given how there were changes from 3 years ago to now with this series. Characters were pushed into the background. It didn't sit right with me. But however, this episode's hit the ground running. Yes, it has. We're introduced to this admiral who's got a past with the Doctor, and they had great chemistry together in scenes. But I'll come on to that. So this admiral's on board, and the ship itself has got to pass through the space of once enemy, the Krill. It's got to pass through their space, and there's an uneasy alliance between them now, as you know. And the Krill allow them to go through, but as long as they get mining rights on a certain planet, that's something that helps their society. The Krill agree for them to pass through their space, but warns them about going into this dark area of space. This is very, very clouded area of space that the Krill perceive to be haunted, essentially, and that if you go in there you'll be possessed and this sort of thing. And this is where the episode's title, Shadow Realms, comes from. So on board the ship, you've got you find out a bit of history between the Doctor and this admiral, and you find out that he was once her professor, and they were once married, and they had this relationship, but it ended, and they haven't seen each other for about 25 years. This leads the Doctor to go in to find the robot and getting some advice not advice, but to talk to him about the relationship that he had with her, and because he wants to get back into a good book, so to speak. Anyway, so the ship passes through, heads into the Krill space, and they come across this area of space when there is this distress beacon is discovered, and it leads them into this area of space where there's no stars, and it is literally just pitch black. But as they head in towards this beacon, they come across this big space station, massive big space station, which has got breathable atmosphere and all this sort of thing, and they decide to go on board. Captain Mercer, number 1, the Doctor, the Admiral, they go on board to see what the lay of the land is and see if they can find the origins of this beacon. While there, they come to find that the space station itself has kind of got a sort of metallic but organic structure to it, so we're heading deep into this sort of alien territory. This you know what I'm saying? Where probably we're going to get introduced to a species we haven't seen before, and no good's coming of it because of the lighting and all this sort of thing they use. You know where this is heading. Anyway, while there, they come across these things that are protruding out of the walls, and the Admiral goes close to it. It opens up, and he gets infected by these spores, and this is the point where they take him back. They go back, but he ends up in med bay, and he starts going through a change. He starts going through a sort of metamorphosis, a body change, and at this point the episode steps into this sort of body horror kind of a deal where he hasn't been infected by an alien inside like in the film Aliens, but instead he's going through a sort of change like The Fly, that sort of a thing, the Cronenberg film. And the makeup looks wonderful at this point. It really does. It looks super, super good. And not only that, as he is changing, he escapes the medical bay, and using his codes, he shuts down the Orville. The entirety of the Orville shuts down. And this is while the captain and the others are back on board the space station because they need to find something to help him. And this is where it steps truly into alien territory, because you've got the crew skulking about the spaceship, the Orville, while this creature is running around. It's running on walls like what the alien does in Aliens and all this sort of a thing. Heavily influenced by Aliens, and it starts turning other crew members into itself by spitting what looks like an acid onto people's faces, but it actually makes their body start to turn very quickly into other versions of these alien species. Obviously, no crew member that gets affected is anyone of any great significance. You've got scenes where people are crawling through the ducts within the ship. So, like I said, very, very Aliens. Until they find a way out, but they're setting this species up to be somewhat of a major threat. Because once they're in, and some of the species have been, some of the aliens have been turned, people have been turned, the ship goes from sending out this beacon to sending another beacon that is a homing beacon, and this other vessel starts approaching and this sort of a thing, until they manage to solve the situation. They don't manage to cure the crew members. They're gone, and there we go. So basically, the episode runs for 65 minutes. 65 minutes. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's a bad thing, because last week I did feel that the episode was overly long. This week it suited that runtime. But if every episode's going to be an hour plus, I'm hoping that we're not going to get to the point where some stories do seem somewhat stretched out. That's not a great thing from my perspective. Some people might embrace the longer runtime, but we'll see how that one goes. So what can I say? This episode, it was fantastic. The humour was back. That was a big thing I missed in the last episode. The humour seemed to take a downturn. I know they said they were taking a back step on the humour, but there was enough humour within this episode between the actors, between the characters, and that's the sort of humour that I like. Just little one-liners and that sort of a thing. It elevates the show a bit more. The effects look fantastic. The makeup was fantastic. The aliens looked fantastic. They didn't want to hide them in darkness all the time, because, the makers of this show must have been quite proud with what they accomplished with how these aliens look. And they had them full frontal on screen. They looked great. They really did, the work. Obviously, it was all sort of bodysuit and all this sort of thing. Maybe enhanced with a little CGI, I don't know. But it did look wonderful. The programme looks expensive, it feels expensive. The actors are all still very comfortable in their roles, which is fantastic to see. I feel that this episode would probably have made a better opener than last week's, and that episode came a bit later, because the issues I have also coming out of last week is that there's no hatred or bias towards the robot anymore. That wouldn't have gone away. That wouldn't have been solved overnight, especially because you had some of the main characters, one main character himself, not liking the robot, or saying that he agreed with the girl last week, and now there's nothing there. That was a strange move in the writing there. I don't know, but there we go. We shall see where that goes delay. But anyway, so that was it. A fantastic episode. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyable. And I'm sure people are going to be praising this episode no end. And it was a lot of fun. Anyway, so this is AJ. Thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Leave me a comment down below on your thoughts on this episode. And let's have a friendly chat. It's AJ. I'll see you later. Take care all. Goodbye.